Hi everyone, welcome to the Responsible Logistics podcast. My name is Elena and our guest today is Christoph Wolff, CEO of Smart Freight Center. Christoph, welcome. And before we deep dive into our conversation today and into the realm of responsible logistics in general, could you please briefly introduce yourself to our dear viewers and dear listeners?
Yeah. First of all, Alena, thanks for having me. So I'm glad to be here in Vilnius today with you. So my name is Christoph Wolff. I'm a chemical engineer. I'm German national. So I've been working in logistics for many years. That started during my days at McKinsey, where I was senior director and led the global mobility and transport practice. I was then 5 years at DB Schenker Rail in the board, working on integrated rail networks in Europe. I had a small incursion into the energy field with ABB. And then since 2014, I've been working on sustainability, I should say. First with the European Climate Foundation, so on renewable power, on transformation to sustainable buildings, transport, finance, heavy industry. Then at the World Economic Forum, and since 3 years at Smart Freight Center.
Wow, that's quite an impressive resume there for over 15, 20 years, I might assume.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that you previously held the leadership positions at the World Economic Forum and McKinsey, as you said. But I'm curious as to what drew your personally, let's say, to the mission of decarbonizing global freight.
I always was interested in transport, and when I was studying chemical engineering, I actually did also a master's in operations research, so network optimization. So I'm coming more from the quantitative field, from analytics. And my first job ever after school was actually with an IT company that has been building real-time software for fleet analytics. And I found that super interesting. There was a European company, a German company, and I was given the chance to open up the US subsidiary and to work with important companies there, with Chrysler and Caterpillar and Timken, etc., on real-time fleet optimization. Replacing dispatchers in that, also in airport operations, and I found that super interesting. So now I've keep coming back to that. Yeah. So no matter where I am, no matter if it's in the railways or if it's in working with logistics companies, so efficiency. Basically dialing up efficiency, making sure that you actually make networks work for the customers and giving value has been always a passion of mine. And so I'm glad to bring efficiency and sustainability together in one area.
Great, thank you. It's actually very interesting to listen how these small experiences over the years in general shape your desire and your interest in the industry and in what you're doing on a daily basis. I'm also curious as to how did your past experiences in rail policy and renewables, the ones that you mentioned and your interest as well, shaped the way you lead the Smart Freight Center today?
Yeah. So interesting enough, so I have spent more than 10 years of my life working in railways, and the one area what we are not working on really is on railways in Smart Freight Center. So I have been finding ways to incorporate that and also to integrate rail decarbonization by moving from road to rail into our model, and also to find ways to calculate the environmental benefits via the GLEC framework. But so far this is early stage, and we do have some more and more engagement with certain industry, for example, the chemical industry. And the chemical industry, for example, as well as the steel industry, so they are very much working on rail transport, and so we are finding ways to actually do more intermodal transports and to open up rail transport to book and claim, to book and claim operations. I'm sure we will get into that. In responsible logistics, you move more and more towards electrified transport. So I think a railway, for example, today says that we are the most responsible or the most sustainable mode because it's all electrified, or it's largely all electrified, and we can source green energy. Yeah? So by making contracts with offshore wind parks or with big utilities, and so electrifying is actually a big topic. It's a systems change because it's not like you change one type of fuel against another type of fuel, and so I find this super interesting because it connects two systems. It connects the power system and the transport system, and so this is and my experience in renewables, in how grid integration, in power markets actually helps a lot with that. And with your question to policy, so policy is a big enabler, so it does force also private companies to look at new ways of doing business. And for example, I mean, in Europe you have now the heavy-duty regulation, which basically means up to 2039, basically all heavy-duty transport should move towards electric trucks. That's a big journey. I mean, today you have basically less than maybe 1 or 2%. Yeah, so from 1 or 2% to almost 100%, it's huge, and so it's a big journey to take. And I'm actually very committed and also very curious how we will make that journey happen.
I'm very curious as well, because from many things that you mentioned, GLEC actually operates on the road and partially we operate on the rail. So we offer to our clients both the battery electric vehicles solutions, but also the intermodal solutions. Yeah. So yeah, that's very insightful actually to see.
At the end of the day, it's all about economics. Yeah, so it's about. I mean, the interesting thing, I've worked in passenger as well as in cargo transportation. And in passenger, you can say, okay, it's up to taste. If you want to move your vehicle and do an electric vehicle, obviously there's range anxiety. Where is my charging infrastructure, etc. In commercial transport, it's all about economics. Yeah, because I mean, trucks are being bought on a total cost of ownership basis or on an ROI basis, and that's on one hand more predictable because you can see there's like 10 to 15 parameters that actually make this happen, and you can more structurally work on that. Yeah, and this is actually also an area where I see GLEC as an important player in the future.
And actually, since you already mentioned the economics, like right here, I would like to ask you, what do you think is the thing that holding us back maybe from adopting the zero emission trucking? Is it infrastructure? Is it the cost? Maybe it's the mindset of the people?
Well, it's a combination of all of those. Yeah. So, but the fundamental is the economics. Yeah. So I personally, I'm convinced if the economics make sense for more and more companies on more and more corridors, use cases, then the infrastructure will come automatically because it's in a service business. It may come with a little bit of time delay, time lag, as you need, for example, a grid connection. Yeah, so you need to work with the utility provider to make sure that there's a connection to the grid. There's a substation nearby. So there's more obstacles, but the underlying is the economics, and the economics are very much driven by, let's say, by three factors. Yeah. So number one, it's a cost of the truck. Yeah. So it's the purchase price of the truck, and that that is like in all physical assets, there's an economies of scale. So once the OEMs get bigger order books and more predictable demand, the prices will come down, and that's true for the trucks. Most importantly, it's also true for the charging infrastructure. So the second big topic is the electricity price, yeah, and that varies a lot country by country, yeah. So. And you need to have if the prices go much beyond 20-25 cents per kilowatt hour, so then it becomes more challenging. So you need to actually open up opportunities for purchasing electricity more cheaply. And the third thing is the utilization of the truck. So the truck makes more money the more it goes. Yeah. So if you have a model where the trucks move all the time, yeah, then these trucks are actually very much suitable for conversion to electric trucks.
Are you talking about the empty miles there?
Yeah, so I think if the utilization is up, that means the revenue miles go up. Yeah, so the share of revenue miles go up. Then it becomes very economical. Yeah, so and as I said, the more the truck goes, the better it gets. Yeah, so there's a kind of a threshold utilization. So a truck should consistently basically move at like 300 to 400 kilometers a day. Above that, it becomes a good candidate for conversion, and that it translates into empty miles as well. Yeah, so empty miles, and I've just learned that actually Gertica is very good in managing empty miles. Yeah,
that's true. That's one of our key focuses.
That's one of your key.
Yes.
And given the fleets are large, yeah, so there's back to my old days of the network optimization. The bigger the fleet, the better you can actually do real-time dispatch and bring down the empty mile.
I would like to take a step back from this discussion and a little bit come back to the idea that you are working with the mission of decarbonizing global freight, which, if I'm correct, means that you're working on the land, on the ocean, and on the air. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, but I would like to go back to the road transportation here. And as far as I know, the road freight accounts for over half of the trade-related CO2 emissions. And I was curious, based on this fact, what do you think is the most urgent action we can take today, starting today, to actually reduce it?
Yeah, so if you look at global numbers, so transport overall is like 25% of global CO2 emissions, yeah? Out of which freight is about a third. Yeah, so freight, commercial transport is like 10% of global emissions. That is together road, sea, and air. So road freight is like 8% of global emissions. So that's significant. Yeah, it's more than the steel industry. That's more than Europe. Yeah, so
and it's growing. It's growing. Yes.
And it's global. Obviously, it's more important. It's ever more. The numbers are ever more impressive if you go to countries with large freight volumes like China, India, etc. Yeah, so and Smart Freight Center indeed does work is global. So we have a headquarters in Amsterdam. So we have a team in the US. We have a team since inception in China, for 2.5 or 3 years in India, a smaller team in East Africa. We will start in Brazil. So I think we are looking at this from indeed a global lens. And what is really important, so it depends a bit on the maturity of the market, and the availability of assets and of power grid and of infrastructure. So electrification, as we told, is a big thing. But for example, I mean, a large part of electric trucks today are being deployed in China. So it's 80,000 actually. And the reason is because they have a top-down development. They first go to the mining sectors, and they move from simple use cases to more complicated use cases. More complicated being basically regional distribution or corridor development. Yeah, and so it's important to have policy in place and to guide the development of the sector. And then obviously get confidence in the technology through early stage pilots. That's what's happening in like India, in Africa, etc. And then venture out into more complex use cases. And there's almost like a playbook, we call it a playbook, how to move from one step to the other. And you need to always come from the market. You aggregate demand, because the density of demand that creates like high utilization of the assets, a small percentage of empty miles, and that's important for making the electric truck deployment efficient and economical.
Talking about, let's say, AI and electric fleets in general, where are you seeing the most promising breakthroughs in the sustainable logistics?
There was a summit in London on AI, artificial intelligence for climate change, and I presented actually a road freight. So there was a road freight panel with different shippers. I think GLEC was also invited to join. I think the biggest opportunity that I'm seeing there is basically network capacity utilization, or if you want, so again, the reduction of empty miles, because that's a huge benefit for not only for the economics, it also basically means the more efficient the miles are, the duty cycles are, the less trucks you need and the less fuel you need. Yeah, no matter if it's either diesel fuel or electric fuel. Yeah, and that has an immediate benefit on sustainability and the climate. And so AI can really help here. So because AI kind of can connect freight movements which maybe are not connected today because they're sitting in different pockets and different parties know about it. So this can be utilized. So we've been talking to different forwarders and different big fleet providers how to go about that. And I think there's a big opportunity for AI. There's also an opportunity, for example, AI in autonomous vehicles. So there's another. There's a movement to not only to electric trucks, but also to autonomous trucks. Basically, all truck manufacturers have autonomous trucking programs. And if you go, for example, to the US, so there are corridors because, you have very long highways, so it's not very complex to manage. So you don't have like the danger that, kids run through the road, or so that you have unprompted occurrences. So the risk is lower, you can geofence it, and you have a shortage of drivers in the first place. Yeah, so you can basically run a truck autonomously along like 100 miles or 200 miles on a highway. Then it stops there, and then maybe for the last mile or first mile, so a truck driver comes in. Yeah, so or you can do platooning also with that. So there's a lot of, and AI once again can help here. So AI is actually one of the ways to train the intelligence in such a truck. So that's another actually interesting application area, but there's more.
Okay, thank you very much. And now I think I would like to move a little bit more to the discussion of the GLEC framework, which has become the global benchmark. But I'm also curious to know whether you think it is keeping up with the pace of the growing complexity of the logistics industry.
So Smart Freight Center is like 12 years old now. And it started as a European project that was then became a non-profit. Yeah, so there were folks, and they had developed the first basically emission accounting framework at the time, 2013. That didn't exist, but everybody agreed you need that in order to compare apples and pears. Yeah, so otherwise, if everybody makes a calculation, you don't know it can be trusted, it follows the same methodology. So that's important to have that.
So do you mean the unified
a
way for everyone?
Standardized way of making accounting, so it can also be used in global annual reports by the company. And so your big shippers, cargo owners have like scope 1, 2, 3 emissions, especially scope 3 emissions, and so they want to take responsibility for that, and they need to measure. Yeah, so they need to say this is our scope 3 emissions, and they need a unified framework. So then it developed, and Smart Freight Center started by convening an ever-growing number of stakeholders, so cargo owners, shippers, fleets, so operators, and other companies, logistics service providers. And so the whole thing was refined further. And meanwhile, there are commercial tools available that do the carbon accounting according to the GLEC framework for a company. And every year we have like 30 to 40 of those, and so they get accredited. So they get every year we do a check on them if they are compliant. Yeah. And so this is kind of the core. And then in 2020, 2021, this GLEC framework became the ISO standard, ISO 14083. So it's a process, it's a public institution process, 2 years, and many organizations go through this. And so this is now the GLEC framework, the ISO standard, and we're also the official partner of the Greenhouse Gas Protocol and of the Science-Based Target Initiative, CDP. So this has become a de facto standard for the logistics industry, and it's being developed forward. For example, a big topic that we are, I think you had mentioned the name before, is a so-called book and claim framework. Yeah, so the book and claim framework builds on the GLEC framework, but it's a special way where you, if you basically purchase environmental attributes, even though you're not moving the physical goods, you can, under certain circumstances and assurances, and a chain of custody that you need to prove, you can actually apply these environmental benefits to your own scope 3 inventory. And that's a big step forward, because in certain areas, especially on the road side, on the air side, on the sea side, it would be very inefficient if only the physical, your physical inventory action can be accounted for. So this is a big step forward. It's not yet, we are in the process with the Greenhouse Gas Protocol and with the Science-Based Target Initiative to work on the validity and the universal recognition, and with many parties, and so that's a big step forward. And this is one of the sophistications, and you refer to the complexity of the GLEC framework. I think that's a good example why we think actually the GLEC framework and the ISO standard is actually very much future-proof.
That was a very interesting reflection that you mentioned there on the whole journey of developing the GLEC framework, and on the way it evolved throughout the years, the way that it became the ISO standard for many companies. But you also mentioned that you've helped, like the Smart Freight Center itself, helped many leaders, let's say, in the industry and many big players to integrate the GLEC framework into their daily operations. So I'm curious whether there were any challenges, let's say, the companies faced or might still facing when trying to integrate it.
Well, I think first of all, carbon accounting traditionally is a bit of a specialty if you look at companies, so that not very many people are knowledgeable about it. So there is an educational challenge. So you need to, and that's why we, as Smart Freight Center, 2 years ago, a good year and a half ago, so we have upgraded our education pathways and offerings by launching a so-called Smart Freight Center Academy. And a big part of that is to provide, there's standard programs, so there's like e-learning, but there's certified courses. There's courses for special companies, so customized, tailored. There's like, besides online, there's like live courses where you work together to craft your sustainable logistics roadmap. And one of the challenges is that there are, within the company, there are the folks that work on sustainable logistics, CSR type. or ESG. Yeah, so and then but in order to move to really integrate that, you need to go beyond. You need to include the procurement people, but because for many cargo owners, it's about procuring services, yeah, and you need to measure the services, etc. So you need to understand that part. And then the next people are the finance people, because they need to integrate the carbon accounting into the financial accounting, yeah.
Okay.
Or if you move towards electric fleets, it's about the operations, because the operations are different. If you need to charge here and there, and you need to redo the whole networks and the operational optimization, etc. So you need to kind of grow the circle of people that you need to reach, and that's a journey. Yeah, so it's not. So in former times, sustainability was like something. Oh, this department does it, and that's it. Yeah. So now it becomes more of a whole company challenge. Yeah. So also leadership challenge.
Like
yeah.
it has to become the backbone.
Yeah, it has to be. It is part of the backbone. I wouldn't say it's the only part of the backbone, but it's an important part of the backbone. And for certain companies like logistical service providers, for example, it can become a differentiation. So they differentiate by providing the option for green logistics and including the whole documentation and the whole accounting behind that. Yeah, so it becomes much more of a business proposition.
That's an interesting perspective, and yes, that makes a lot of sense, just because the companies are complex as well as the solution, let's put it this way, is complex. So it takes time and it takes a lot of effort to combine them together. I also would like to know, how do you think we can avoid emissions reporting becoming a checkbox exercise rather than a real tool for impact?
Yeah, I think it's another way to basically answer the same question. Yeah, so if people understand why it makes sense, yeah, so then you no longer say, okay, it's just a checkbox. Yeah, so if it becomes a business proposition, if people know that this is now taken seriously because the reporting guidelines, CSRD and others basically require that there is carbon accounting, emission accounting behind it to calculate the carbon footprint. So it's not just a box to be ticked, but it's actually data that are generated and which are being read by analysts. Yeah, so if you are a publicly listed company, so your analysts look at your carbon footprint, yeah, and they want to know, where do the numbers come from? Yeah, your CFO wants to know that, yeah, because he's talking to the analysts, yeah, he or she, and so it becomes real, yeah. And for some companies, it becomes a differentiating feature. Yeah. So you provide to your customers the opportunity for sustainable logistics. So they want to know, how does it work? How is it being calculated? Is it real? What types of fuels? What types of solutions, etc. So it no longer is a checkbook exercise. Yeah, it may have been one like 10 years ago when the market was not sophisticated. Mm-hmm. But now so there's an army of analysts on all sides. So they want to know more. Yeah, so they're not happy with if they think this is a checkbook exercise, then they say, well, that's not credible.
Could you please share a real-life example of a successful operational change that significantly contributed to the decarbonization process?
So we have a Smart Freight Center. We more and more also work on an industry model, because I mean traditionally the GLEC Framework, ISO standard are cross-industry, but then we see that within our cohorts, different industries like the pharma industry, the fashion industry, the cement industry, they all have different challenges, yeah? So fast-moving consumer goods, but they like to talk to each other and they all have like industry associations. So we had like actually so the second time at our Smart Freight Week, the fashion group, the fashion interested group, like 40, 50 people in the room. And they looked at different challenges. And one of the challenges for fashion industry is is because they have short replenishment cycles, yeah. Because the fashion industry that changes quickly. That means and many of them have now an e-commerce model, which is basically a made-to-order. So you order something in Europe, yeah, and it gets fabricated in Asia, yeah. And now, in order to bring that to the market, it's mostly air freighted, yeah. Air freight is a very high carbon intensive. So I'm seeing that there are more and more sophistication as to do some of this in nearshoring, so closer to the market, so to basically enable the change from air freight to sea freight or to road freight, and to become also for the remaining air freight kind of a hotspot or initiator of sustainable aviation fuel solutions, which would be great because they lack scale. But some of these industries, fashion, pharma, etc., that produce in Asia for markets in the West, I think could become a key initiator or a key builder for those types of pathways.
Since you already mentioned, I was really curious about the Smart Freight Week. First of all, could you please maybe explain to our listeners and to our viewers what the event is about?
Yeah, so the Smart Freight Week is our annual gathering in Amsterdam. So it's the fourth time, or in Holland, I should say. It's the fourth time we had that. I remember when I just joined 3 years ago, the second week we had our initial Smart Freight Week in Rotterdam Harbor, on a boat. We were like 120 people. So this time we were around 900, yeah, so it has grown quite significantly, and which shows that there's a global interest. It's 3 days. I think there's like 60 sessions. So we have like very senior speakers from the industry. And I like to say it's always a mixture of a workshop and a conference and also a class reunion. Yeah, because I mean the folks within the cargo owners that work on sustainable logistics, so they find people who are like-minded, yeah, so who are in the same situation, so have the same challenges, who also need to convince some of their colleagues that this is important. And so there's a lot of actually a great interaction, so people come again and again. And so it was very cool. It was really very exciting, rooms filled with energy. And what I was especially happy about is because, I mean, in these days, geopolitics are sometimes confusing, and people say, okay, is it still the same? Does sustainability still count? But I think we were encouraged panel after panel and interaction after interaction, speaker after speaker, on the mission to say, no, we need to double down. So we can't waver. We may change our narrative. It may be more about efficiency, about resilience, about energy independence, about air pollution, etc., etc. But I think we need to stick to our journey, and so I felt very happy about that. So that was one of the core takeaways of this year's Smart Freight Week.
Fast forward to 2035. What do you think is the day in the life of freight company look like?
2035, that's 10 years from now, so that's near future actually. I think today we are 25 years away from 2050, which typically is the end point of most roadmaps. So 2035 is an important milestone. If you look at what the European Commission tries to achieve, we should actually be pretty close. We should have upgraded the electric truck network in Europe significantly, as well as in the US. I think we're working in China and India specifically. So today it's all about trials and testing and getting to know. So should be common practice. Yeah, so it should be common practice. There's a charging infrastructure around so people don't know how to do their route planning and scheduling around that. So I think the GLEC framework and book and claim should be common practice. Yeah, and much more much more the use of primary data. So obviously every truck or every vehicle is in the IoT is a data point. Yeah. So the data point sends lots of data about locations, fuel consumptions, utilization, etc. So this becomes more and more an integrated IT environment with indeed sophisticated tools, maybe AI-based or likely AI-based, helping to create more efficiency and also more comfort and convenience for drivers. You see a lot more autonomous trucks, I guess, so we should as a society benefit from that. Yeah. So this creates additional jobs. It creates in many places air quality benefits. It creates lives and livelihoods. So I hope this will contribute to that we all live in a better place.
If you could send a short message to every logistics leader in the world, like very short one, what would you say?
Yeah, I think it's a message that we had from our Smart Freight Week. Stick to the basics and make sustainable logistics reality. And don't waver.
Okay. And the final one is actually addressed to our listeners there. What would you say is one practical step they could take already today to contribute to the sustainability in the logistics industry?
Yeah, I think as we discussed, it starts with measuring. Yeah, so what you don't measure, what you don't change. Yeah, so get interested in your carbon footprint and compare it with your peers. Yeah, and talk to your peers what they have done about it and what you can do about it, and then become interested and see the networks, become part of networks, and embark on your journey.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Christoph, for joining us here today. It was a pleasure talking to you in person, and I wish you a great day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for watching us. And to learn more, you can visit our YouTube channel of the Responsible Logistics Podcast, as well as listen us on the Spotify. And I can't wait to see you in the next episode.